My first selected reading this evening is a chapter titled The Big Apple. I'm 22 years old. It's my first day in New York, and I've just completed a national tour with a play called No Place to Be Somebody. It won the Pulitzer Prize in 1972. I have a boyfriend named David who I'm staying with until I get my feet on the ground. So here we go, The Big Apple. After 3 months on the road, I'd saved enough money to stay in New York for a while and put my new life together. David offered me his place to stay at until I got my bearings. On our first day back in town, he took me along to meet his agent, a middle-aged Jewish man who was slumped over a cluttered desk in a small, dingy office. After they finished talking, the agent directed a few questions at me. With David's testimony to my talent, the man asked if I could supply him with some pictures and resumes. Then just a few hours later, he called David to have him tell me that I had an audition for a SAG film the next day. Really? I said, as I took the call. Yeah, they just lost their lead actress and they're ready to start shooting in 5 days. They're looking for someone your age to play a gal who has recently moved to New York from the Midwest. Do you think you can handle that? The next day, at the designated office, I sat alongside several other women studying sides from 7 Deadly Sins. My reading went well enough that I was invited to stay and read again for the director. Following that success, he asked if I was okay doing nudity. Shocked to find myself facing this question, I chose my words carefully. There are some circumstances under which I would be all right with nudity, but not as a rule. He then asked, "Did you see the movie The Fox?" "Yes." "With Sandy Dennis?" He nodded affirmatively. "I thought it was an excellent film." "I directed it." "What did you think about the nudity in that one?" Believing now that he was the real deal, I replied, "I thought it was handled very tastefully." And with that, I was asked to wait while he left the room. When he returned, he was accompanied by 4 other men, including the assistant director who I'd already done a scene with. Again, we read together. Following that, the director asked, "Would you mind taking your clothes off now?" "Oh, crap," I thought as he continued. "We can't afford to hire you and then have you freeze up on us on the set. We need to know that you really will be able to work without your clothes on." Green as I was, I knew that a professional actress wouldn't take her clothes off at a first audition. And when she did take them off, if ever, it would be with the consent of her agent. So with a feigned professionalism, I said, "I need to speak with my agent. If he agrees that it's necessary, then I'll do so at the callback." "Normally that would be our procedure too," he responded. "But this is the callback, and we start shooting in 4 days. We don't have time for normal protocol." God darn it, why does everything have to be so sketchy? One of the gentlemen who identified himself as the cinematographer then added, "And frankly, we need to see your body to make sure that you don't have a beauty mark the size of a football or something on your thigh." Well, that logic spoke to my Virgoan sensibilities. If I wanted this union job, then I was going to have to step through my fears and bare my bones on my first audition on my 2nd day in New York. I could hardly believe this was happening. As it was a frigid day in February, I was wearing several layers of clothing. Kelly green wool knit slacks with a matching vest, a white turtleneck sweater, mid-calf leather boots with 25 laces each, pantyhose, white cotton bikini underwear, and a white push-up bra. Without a plan as how best to proceed, I removed the vest and then the turtleneck, only to panic at the notion of being topless while removing everything else. So leaving my bra on, I changed course and started to remove my boots. With one leg hoisted up onto a chair, I started to undo the intricate lacing, soon realizing that I was rendering a very cheesy pose. I didn't want to drag out the process unnecessarily, and I figured that no one cared what my feet looked like anyway. So I abandoned the boot removal and moved on to the knit slacks. But when I tried to slip them off, they got stuck around the top of the boots. Oh dear. Desperately wanting the ordeal to be over, I swiftly pulled down my pantyhose, bunching them up just above the pants at knee level. I was aware that I looked much like a kid about to sit on the toilet, and that the worst was yet to come. Matter-of-factly, I removed my bra and set it aside. Those poor little breasts of mine were now painfully exposed, yet the moment of truth was still ahead of me. I had to take off, or rather, pull down my underpants. Sweat was dripping from my armpits. I desperately wanted to run and hide, but if I chickened out at that point, then it would have all been for naught. I had to bring it home. I took a breath, pulled down my underpants, and just stood there miserably in my nakedness. Then it occurred to me that they probably wanted to see me from the back, too. So, I shuffled around, and I shuffled my feet around in a circle for their viewing pleasure. When I faced them again, I made an effort to look directly at each one. And when I did so, it struck me as ironic that none of them were bold enough to look blatantly at my body. Suddenly, the cinematographer asked, "Are you nervous?" I released a big laugh and said, "Yes, I'm nervous. I'm standing here stark naked in front of 5 strange men, and you're all looking me right in the eye." The director laughed and said, "You're beautiful. Put your clothes on." Quickly, I pulled up my pants, all 3 layers at once, and slipped the turtleneck over my head without bothering with the bra. I was asked to go wait in the hall while they talked things through. On my way out, I requested and was given a copy of the script. I settled into a tiny closet of a room and began to read. Not far into it, my heart began to sink, but I hung in there, hoping to arrive at some measure of appreciation. Sadly, it only got worse. My character was the last of 7 victims of a serial killer who preyed on young, attractive women. I'd end up murdered, hanging upside down naked from a tree in Central Park. It was garbage. The worst kind of garbage. The kind where violence against women is sensationalized, something I've always disdained. Just then, my 6-year-old nephew Holden popped into my mind and said with great sadness, "Aunt Franny, how could you let yourself be used like that?" That was all it took. If offered the part, I would turn it down. The assistant director then opened the door, threw his arms up, and said, "You got the part!" "I'm sorry, I can't accept it," and I handed him back the script. The director then approached. "Congratulations!" "She says she can't do it," said the AD. "I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's too violent for me," I confirmed and made my way out the door. I called David from the nearest payphone and arranged to meet up with him in an hour in Times Square. When he asked how it went, I spilled my story to him. He stopped in the middle of the street and hollered, "You turned the part down?" "Yes, it's garbage," I screamed. "It's worse than garbage, David. And he cut me off. "You turned a lead role in a SAG film down? Are you fucking kidding me?" His eyes were ablaze with condemnation as he threw up his arms in disbelief. I shuddered under his tone and hurried across to the other side of the street as he continued with his rant about what a fool I was. But I saw the writing on the wall. If he couldn't support my values, we couldn't be together. That night, the director phoned and said that even though he was sorry to lose me, He respected my decision, assuring me that I was very talented and would have many more opportunities. He sure didn't have to do that. A year later, the movie came out under the name Massage Parlor Murders. I did not go see it. Oh, and it turned out he did not direct The Fox. Go figure.